Oh, that's a big hole. Hi, it's Todd from Todd's Workshop and Todd Cutler here, and today we are going to talk about the staff sling. This is an incredibly simple weapon that can throw big rocks a hell of a long way, even in the hands of a normal guy. And today I will show you how it works, how it's used, and how to make one. And these things are so simple that even you will be able to make one. And when I say you, I mean you, the person who thinks they can't. But first, we'll just get a little bit of history out the way. The staff sling seems to be a late Roman invention because it's first mentioned in this book by Vegetius, which is late 4th century Roman Empire. Now the thing is, yes, Roman, but actually it all smells a little bit Greek to me, so I think it probably went further back and they did love their slings. But either way, it was definitely used throughout the Dark Ages. It must have been because it had such a resurgence by the time we get to the Middle Ages. It is everywhere. So sieges, naval warfare, open battlefield. Staff slings were there. But Vegetius actually said that he thought that the injuries from slings and staff slings were actually more damaging than arrows because of the general nature of the injury. It's harder to track down what the problem was. But anyway, like all good weapons, it's really cheap, it's easy to use, and it was fantastically effective. What's it all about? It's about this. Oh! So it's about 70 odd meters, something like that. Now, what you have got is a staff that is somewhere between under your armpit to just over your armpit, something about that length. You've got a peg carved on the end, and then the sling is just tied off with a slip knot, leather sling, and a loop that goes over the peg. I'll show you all this in close up in a moment. But then you take your rock, put it in the pouch, and you just swing your arms. It really is that simple. Ho ho ho! Makes you throw like a baseball player. I can't play baseball, but I can throw a rock. So I'll show you again. Take it in two hands, swing overhead, and the stone goes a long way over there. There's no trigger, there's no timed release. It's all built in. And it's such a simple weapon to make and to use. But of course, inevitably, there's more going on than you might think. Just to make sure we all know what's going on, I'll show you the business end of the staff here. So you've got a little peg just carved in the end there. One end of the sling is mounted beneath the peg, tied off onto the shaft. Little loop goes over the peg. As you swing it through its cycle, that loop will pop off and the stone flies. But let's have a look at it in slow-mo and you'll completely see at what point it leaves the staff and what the trajectory is going to do. Because the length of the sling changes the trajectory. So you understand how it works, you can understand how to tune it. It works by swinging the staff overhead. This accelerates the sling and the stone. They swing outward. They're rotating around the tip of the staff, accelerating all the time, until the angle between the staff and the sling is big enough that the loop slips off the peg and the stone is released. And just like a trebuchet, the relationship between the various elements of the sling dictate how it's going to perform. So the length of the staff, the length of the sling, the weight of the projectile you throw, and of course your own physical strength and the speed with which you can move. These all basically give a set of built-in parameters, the default setting, if you like, of this setup. But before we do any more, I'm just going to show you a gratuitous clip of a trebuchet throwing fireballs. I love it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Now then, we were talking about default settings. Now, like any other bit of kit, and this is like modern terminology, but you know what I mean, you become accustomed with it. You become accustomed to the default settings. But now you can go into the advanced section. So if I swing this as hard as I can, the rock goes pretty much the same distance each time. But what you can do is you can start to accelerate this hand more, or that hand more. That changes the release angle a little bit. You can go a little bit softer. That changes the release angle a bit. You can change the weight of the rock that you put in it. And so actually you're able to go into the advanced settings menu and change the default settings of your staff. But that takes experience. So the hands of a novice, any fool can use this. I've shown it. But give it to an advanced person and it becomes a far more fearsome weapon. During the course of the fight, the user can basically enter the advanced settings menu and adjust their weapon according to what they need. But of course, it's the weapon that they were given at the beginning. So how do you make those choices about how big it should be? Well, the length of the staff and the length of the sling make massive differences to how it works. So we're just going to look at one of those and see the different trajectories. So the length of the sling, I've got 3 different ones here. We're going to plot it on screen, see the difference it makes. Okie dokie. So we have the longest sling at about 60 centimetres, 2 foot. Nice. Mid-length sling. Short sling. So what we can take from that is before a fight starts, you can adjust your weapon for what's going to happen. Basically, long sling for if you're going flat into the ranks of the people opposite, short sling if you're going up and over the wall. Now clearly this has striking similarities with the trebuchet. And what I find odd is that neither the Chinese nor the Persians saw this and made that leap much earlier than they did. But anyway, they seem to have developed independently of each other, even though the technology is remarkably similar. Hi, I've just interrupted the film for today's Todd Cutler related interesting fact. 15th century medieval rondel dagger. Now I can't give you a fact about this one because I'm going to talk about the really weird blade shape on it. No idea what that's all about, but you'll see weird things like that on all sorts of knives all over Europe. Non-facts, how about that? Anyway, you will find this and loads of other similar items on toddcutler.com. And now, back to the film. I'm going to show you how to make it now with really a very simple toolkit. This is everything that you need. But we're going to start with the staff. So it wants to go from somewhere between nipple height and ear height. Anything between there will suit you quite well. But none of the measurements I'm going to give you are exact. Just do something and see if it works. It's so simple, just make another one. So we're going to start by getting rid of any little side branches, any lumps off the staff there. So I'll just go along. It's very dull, so I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but you get the idea. We're then going to carve the peg onto the end. So I'm just going to mark where I want it and just going to start carving away. So about 1.5 inches. And there you are. Just going to round the back slightly, that just aids the loop slipping off. But now if you imagine that we put the loop of our sling on here, obviously it's going to stay on there, that's fine. But as you lean backwards for your throw, it can slip off right at the beginning. So we just need to put a little retaining groove in here. That's what I'm going to carve now. And I'm now just going to tidy it up slightly, just make it a bit more even, a bit cleaner. And then we'll test it with our loop. So that will come off just fine. So carving the peg really is that simple. But that's one half of the sling. The other half of the sling needs to tie off here. Now a very tight knot and it might stay, but again we can just put a retaining groove in here and that will hold everything in place. So I'm just going to mark it up for that. I'm just carving away. And now when I lash the sling around it, it won't go anywhere. So that is the staff finished. Time for the sling. I have a piece of leather about 3mm thick. I'm sure you could do it with, you know, jeans or something like that, stout fabric. And then cut a strip that is about 1 palm wide, 3 palms long. So basically about 9 centimeters by 28, something like that. And it will work just fine. Nothing needs to be super precise. So now we need to find the center line. So fold it in half and just put a little mark on the center line. And then I'm just going to score with the back of the blade, so I'm not cutting through, where that line is. Now if you find again the center line this way, come in about 1 thumb thickness, put a mark, and then cut from that mark down to the edge. And you now end up with a piece of leather, or I guess pair of jeans, cut like this. And then again, just maybe 1 centimeter, ½ inch, mark the center on each end. Now I could cut those holes, it's a lot easier, I own a hole punch. And I end up with a piece of leather that looks like that. Now you need some strong cord. In modern terms, paracord would do very well. This is a 4mm hemp cod line. But you want it strong, not thin string. And you just take your ends, pass them over each other, put your cord through. You tie it off in a series of very simple knots. So you just pass it through and pull it tight, pass it through again, pull it tight, pass it through again, pull it tight. Horrible knot. In England we call that a granny knot. Now I've cut that off with a 1 meter cord. Do the same on the other end. So that is our finished sling. And you can see the splitting in it gives it a slight curvature. Basically you want it to just slightly hold the shot, but not what you might think, which is to really encompass the shot, because that will make it very unpredictable. Going to leave the cords at about 60 centimeters, 2 foot long. And that way we can shorten them if we need to, but we'll test it like this. So now we need to make a slip knot for the part that goes onto the shaft. So take your cord, pass it through. Take your cord, pass it through. And then just do it one last time and pass it through. Now when that's all pulled tight, it will clamp down on the shaft. Just put it in the groove there and nothing will slip. So basically, because it's a slip knot, it self-tightens. And now we need to make the loop for the other end, making sure that's not going to hold the stone, making sure that it's balanced like that. So just pop the cord over, put your thumb in the middle of the pouch and just pull it until it's level. And that way you know that it's going to hold the stone well. Pinch it off at about 2.5 inches, 65, 70 millimeters. Just take your cord, pass it through itself and form an eye. So now I can put the eye on the peg at the end and you can see that'll work nicely. And that is it. It is as simple as a weapon can be to make, and yet devastatingly powerful. It shows why they were so popular and used for such a long period. But anyway, enough of that. Let's go test it. So we've made our staff sling. Let's see what it does to our knights. Oh. Straight through his chest. Well, you know, he's not flesh and blood, but you know it's going to hurt. Now I'm throwing this deliberately at short range, but actually with the same thing, you throw different technique, you'll get a lot further. Oh. Won't walk again. So I promised you could make this And you can, don't tell me you can't. And I also promised that it was devastating in the hands of even an ordinary guy. I am not experienced with this thing. You know, ranged weapons, yes. Staff sling, no. I'm punching holes in those guys. Well, when I hit them. But, you know, often enough, if I don't hit him, I'll hit him. But let's see how we go. Oh. And when I said devastating, I meant devastating. Oh. That's a big hole. Really is an extraordinarily simple thing. So I'm down to my last rock, because the thing is, Vegetius says, always train your soldiers how to throw rocks and how to sling them, because battles take place so often in stony ground. Well, not a lot of stones here, so it's the last one. But then, actually, talking of Vegetius, I've got another surprise for you. Oh, winged him. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed it, but there's just a tiny bit more. So I said I had one more thing to try, and I do. Plumbata, Roman war darts. Now, according to the literature, these, at least in Western Europe, were invented about the same time. The Greeks loved throwing darts from slings, kestros. Romans didn't seem to do that, but if they invented them together, you can bet that they would have tried, because they knew about the kestros. But this is what the plumbata do on their own. Tasty. And now, available from toddcutler.com. But against my better judgment, let's try it with a sling. I'm putting those in a sling, if I can get them to balance. Well, this ranks as definitely in the don't try this at home brigade. Right, here we go. Would it have worked? Well, yeah, kinda. A little bit precarious. But anyway, the bottom line is, you can throw them by hand much faster, much more accurate. So I think, no, that's not the way. But go check out the kestros. There's a guy called Dave Morningstar on YouTube. Good staff sling video. Amazing kestros videos. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this one. See you again.